Okay, here we are once again. Um, it's 11 o'clock at night. I'm doing another draft video. I'm going to skip my own team because, surprise, I have my own team at number 6. I'm going to go to my number 7 team, mostly because I usually leave my own draft video for last. And the reason I do that is usually because I can talk about my team for a lot because I know my own draft process. I know what I was thinking at the time. I take notes on it. So I can talk about my own team for like days. And I know most people aren't really interested in my draft video exclusively. They're only interested in theirs. So we're going to jump to the number 7 team, which is Ryan. And before we even do that, I just want to kind of give you guys like a little like heads up. I have these teams in like tiers. It's more so a tier list than it is like these are all there's separation between each of these teams despite the numbers. My tiers go like essentially 1 through 4 is the first tier, so Justin, Robbie, Brian, and Patrick are in their own tier, and then my second tier is Sarah, myself, and Ryan. So the first 2 tiers are those 7 teams. We will get into the other tiers as we get closer into the next videos, but I have each in their own separate tiers just because I think that's what the talent level like divvies it out. But in the meantime, I got Ryan's team at number 7. So 18th nomination, $54, Devon Achane. So people are probably a little surprised by this, that I have Ryan this high and I have Achane this high, considering some of the other running backs and receivers that went higher. But to be completely fair, I think people underestimate how good Achane was last year. He's becoming a star in fantasy football, underrated star in fantasy football. Last year was only the 12th time in the past decade a player had over 200 carries and over 75 receptions. So that's, for example, that's prime Christian McCaffrey workload, essentially. And he's scored at least 11 touchdowns in both the years he's been the starter in Miami. And he's led all running backs in routes, catches, yards, and receiving touchdowns last year. So he had 6 receiving touchdowns and 6 rushing touchdowns last year. He actually played all 17 games, but his play suffered when Tua Tagovailoa, I cannot pronounce it very well. I am sorry to Tua. Tua Tagovailoa. Anyway, his play suffered when Tua played. It was under 10 points per game. But when Tua was playing, it was over 22 points per game. So that gives you a general idea of just like what the ceiling and what the floor is. So in a strange twist of fate, even the running back needs Tua to stay healthy in Miami. That being said, that upside is what makes him so tantalizing. I think this year he'll break 1,000 yards rushing. I think obviously he'll get his 500 yards receiving again. He's one of the guys, though, because he gets the work and because it's spread out. There's Jonnu Smith had a big year as the tight end, and technically Darren Waller's the third banana, I guess, there behind Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. But they rely a lot. They rely a lot on the running backs. People forget it wasn't all that long ago. It was just two short years ago Raheem Mostert led the NFL in touchdowns in Miami, rushing touchdowns. So and Achane's kind of just consumed that role for himself. So as long as he stays healthy, as long as Tua stays healthy, he is a rock solid, in the middle, solid RB1 with the possibility of having the best running back season of anyone. And so it's kind of strange to me that he went for 54 when, I mean, obviously Barkley went for 85, Bijan went for 90, Ashton Genty went for 68, Derrick Henry went for 77, and I'm saying Achane is like 5. He's like number 5 or 6. He's around there. And he went for 54. That's strange. Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs went for 76 too. That's what I'm forgetting. And yeah, Achane's one of those players, like, I don't think Derrick Henry will have the best number 1 fantasy season. I don't think Barkley's going to keep up his pace and have the number 1 season. I don't think Gibbs will because Dave Montgomery's there either. Achane might. He's got the ability. He's got the workload. It's really a matter of, funny enough, can Tua stay healthy? But getting someone with that kind of upside to be the fantasy MVP for $54, I mean, that's a really good deal. He should have probably gone for 60, at least 60, if not 70. All right, 2 nominations later, $52, Malik Nabers. All right, so I talked about Sarah paying for Ja'Marr Chase at 72, or was it 71? Okay, so it was 71. Yeah, because 72 was last year with Eileen with Tyreek Hill. Anyway, so I talked about Sarah paying for Ja'Marr Chase at cost. And I remember Nabers was on Justin's team last year, and obviously he was a rookie, and he had one of the best rookie seasons of all time. He was the number 6 overall pick. He had 35% target share. He had 1,200 yards receiving, 7 touchdowns, and that's despite missing like 2 games. So he was like a top 30 scorer 13 of the 15 weeks that he played. He ought to be even better with Daniel Jones gone, and now we get the Russell Wilson experience, or possibly Jackson Dart, or if something happens to Dart too, we get Jameis Winston, which is good for fantasy. But he's also a rock solid in the middle, number 1 wide receiver with the possibility of being the fantasy MVP. Because, I mean, obviously Chase has had the 1,700-yard season. Jefferson has an 1,800-yard season under his utility belt. So does Devontae Adams. Nabers could get there. I mean, funny enough, if Nabers actually got quality QB play, he probably would be in the conversation to get there. That's how talented he is. But he is held back by not great Russell Wilson. Like, this is not prime Russell Wilson. This is like super zesty, over the hill Russell Wilson. He's not done, but all he's really got is like a moon ball. He's not great underneath at all. But the moon ball will get you far when you got a deep threat. So I think he takes another step. Just because Wilson is better than anything they had last year, I think he'll get close to 1,500 yards this year. I think he'll get like 9 touchdowns. I think he might even do better and push to be the best receiver in football. I don't think he is. Again, I think Justin Jefferson is. I think Ja'Marr Chase is in the conversation. But basically, in a funny, strange world, Malik Nabers quietly had the Odell Beckham Jr. rookie season. And it was even quieter than what Odell did, just because Odell has that crazy, incredible catch like 11 years ago. And Nabers didn't have like a shining moment. But his season was just as good. And people don't really realize that outside of New York. But he's an incredibly talented player. You paid for him at cost, though. Like, this is probably around what he cost. I mean, I guess he got a little discount because Jefferson and Monra got a discount. So technically speaking, got a discount on him. I mean, he went for the same as Drake London. So, still, I think he's a bona fide, solid number 1 receiver with the possibility of being the best. And that's what we're buying. We're buying the upside to be the best. So, I don't mind it. It's kind of funny. We got our 2 star players who are rock solid number 1s at their position. And we only spent $106 between the 2. Which sounds like a lot, but you look at some of the other teams in our league, that is not a lot. Like, there are some teams that just went, well, I mean, I'm one of those teams. Yeah, I went kind of gangbusters, but, you know, Robbie went kind of gangbusters because Chase Brown went for 70, and that's still baffling to me. Anyway, moving on. 38th nomination, $25. Right around what I thought he would go for. Exactly. The exact amount. I even mentioned it to Mackenzie. The exact amount I thought Kamara would go for. $25. So we're going into year 9. Last year, Kamara was pretty beat up. He played 14 games, and he had 228 carries, so a lot of carries. He led all backs in targets, and he had 68 receptions. Ooh. But now, between his durability starting to dissipate, his acceleration starting to wane, Derek Carr after Drew Brees is retired, he hasn't played. I don't think Kamara's played a full regular season since his second year in the league, and he's now 30, so he's an older running back, which is strange to say. I think the offense will run through him in New Orleans. I don't think he'll have as good a season as he just had. I think he'll have maybe 900 yards rushing and maybe 500 yards receiving, which is still in the RB12, it's basically a fringe RB1, high-end RB2, fringe RB1. But for $25, that's exactly what I thought he was worth. He might be even better than that. If he actually is healthy the whole time and reaches what I just said, then he's probably worth, I paid $45 for James Cook, and that's probably not far off from what Cook might put up. And you got him for $25, so that's good on you, man. He's always been a favorite of mine. It's just kind of it's tough for me because he's getting older, and I don't know how much I can trust that he's going to stay healthy the whole time, even if they are going to feed him. The O-line's not great. He's just not in a great situation. I don't think he's a top 10 running back anymore, unfortunately, but just purely off volume, I think he'll be he's definitely a top 15 running back. So getting him for $25, that's solid work. We're not hitting home runs yet, but we're hitting some line drive doubles, and they're bullets flying around. So this is why I put Ryan at 7. I don't think he has obviously the upside of Brian or Patrick, but the team overall is deep, and they're all quality players with the possibility of being even more. As I wipe off my screen. Next, the very next nomination, you spend $30 on Brock Bowers. Okay. So did Brock Bowers have a monster season last year? Yeah, he did. He did have a monster season last year. So he broke the, I want to say the rookie tight end record. I think he might have broke the record just straight up outright, if I'm being honest, for rookies in receptions. I'm pretty sure. No, well, did he? I know it's for tight end, so we'll just go with that. So he had the most receptions for a tight end ever, which is 112. And he led tight ends in routes, targets, receptions, yards, and fantasy points. Funny enough, he only had 5 touchdowns, so kind of low. But I guess that's what happens when your quarterbacks are Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. I think he'll get more goal line work. I think he is, he's only 22, so he's obviously elite for his position. I think it ought to be a step up, even if the Raiders are going to be more run-heavy. Geno Smith is better than whatever Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew are. This is, again, people are just how can you think the Raiders have a playoff shot? And I'm just because they were freaking terrible last year and nobody made an upgrade. Anthony Richardson was really bad last year, and he was still better than what the Raiders were trotting out at quarterback. All right? McDaniels was a bad head coach because he had no idea what he was doing with Jimmy Garoppolo, and they couldn't scheme up Devontae Adams. It was a bad situation all around. Nothing about it worked. And then they brought in Antonio Pierce was the guy last year, and then he's trying to run the ball and control the clock, and they can't air it out at all. They have no passing offense. And basically, like, going from the level of dysfunction to the level of just like, we don't even have to call it greatness. We can just call it like competency of Pete Carroll's ability to build an elite defense, of Geno Smith to be an accurate passer, of an O line just to be average, and getting an incredible running back prospect. The Raiders have to be better. Like, it's all there. It's super obvious. Sometimes you just kind of take what is there and you run with it. I think Jerome has them winning like maybe 5 games, and I'm like, bro, like, they'll win double that. I got him as a 9-win team. So, yeah, I think Bowers, I mean, everything, I wouldn't say everything revolves around him. I think everything revolves around Genty now, because that's what Pete Carroll's doing. But the passing offense is through Bowers, and Bowers is elite. He's elite at what he does. We saw it with Sam Laporta the year before. But for my money, I think Bowers is better than Laporta. He's like it's kind of strange. Like, he's more athletic than Gronk. He's kind of like Prime in a way. He's so smooth. He makes me think of like Shannon Sharp, way back throwback. If you want like early, like mid 2000s, maybe Tony Gonzalez. He's a really smooth route runner, great technician, great body control. So I'm gushing over him. I don't know if he will have as good a season as he just had. He had close to 1,200 yards as a tight end. I don't know if he'll do that. Again, I think Jakobi Meyers is a quality, like, number 1 receiver, and I think Jacoby's going to have something to say about that because Geno Smith's there. But I can see 1,100 yards. I can see like 6 touchdowns. He is right in the thick of it as being essentially like a wide receiver too. So borderline top. He's basically in the top 15 wide receivers as the number 1 tight end, but he's quality. Getting him for $30, you paid a little bit, like, you paid very high. You basically paid for him at cost. But, I mean, he's a quality elite player for what he does. 66 nomination. I know I chummed them waters. You paid $5 for him. It was Rashee Rice. So now we know he is suspended the first 6 games of the season. We know that he was basically a superstar his rookie year. I think he only played 9 games that year, but he averaged 19 points a game. And I know last year, in the 3 games Robbie had him, he had a huge like target shares, like 33%. So a third of the offense was going through him. And then he tore his LCL. And he was never really the same, even though they got to the Super Bowl with like Xavier Worthy, and then Hollywood Brown came back and he couldn't contribute and he got beat up, and then Travis Kelce. So the offense runs through Rashee Rice. He's got wide receiver 1 upside, but the issue is, again, with the suspension, not to mention the bye week, you're talking like that's 7 weeks. That's a while. And that's also not counting the fact that you're hoping he stays healthy, which is not a guarantee given his injury history. So in the meantime, I think when he plays for you, he's a rock-solid wide receiver 2. He might be a fringe wide receiver 1 even. So getting that for $5 is quality. But it's going to be a wait. You're going to have a long wait. You're going to have to sit on him for a while. So I think maybe 700 yards, maybe like 5 touchdowns. He's definitely a starter in our league when he's healthy and everything's going. Like, everything's moving. But I don't know if everything's going to be moving. So we shall see. I think he'll get about 60 receptions. But he's got to stay healthy for the basically 10 weeks of the 9 weeks, because we don't count the bye, that he's going to play. And we'll also see what the Chiefs' offense looks like by that time. It could be very different. We do not know. Again, things happen in season, and they change the trajectory, and they change the roles, and we just got to wait and see. But for $5, I love that gamble. Next, 78th nomination, $7, DJ Moore. So I know Brian is a fan of DJ. I'm surprised he didn't go after him. He's one of the more consistent and reliable players in fantasy. Funny enough, kind of like Allen Robinson used to be when he was with the Bears. I think he's only missed like 2 games in 7 years. So, and he's been a top 25 receiver, I want to say 6 years in a row. He wasn't that great last year. I don't really blame him because nothing about the Chicago offense was good. I think he was I want to say like the 28th fantasy receiver after being like the year before he was like 9th. He was still like, for what was going on, it wasn't his fault. I want to say on the back end of the year, I think he was averaging over 16 fantasy points a game. So he was like producing once like Eberflus and the old offensive coordinator, I think it was Shane Waldron, who was trying to bring some weird version of the West Coast to Caleb Williams, and he doesn't run that. He runs the air raid, but I digress. Don't want to get into the weeds too much. The point is, DJ Moore was better in the second half of the season when Chicago actually tried to cater to Caleb Williams' strengths and air it out. I think he's a good wide receiver too. I think so. He's like a top 20 wide receiver. I think it can't get worse than what it was last year. If nothing else, Ben Johnson ought to bring a level of competency to the Chicago offense. So I think he gets back to 1,000 yards. I think he gets his like 7 touchdowns. I think he's going to get around 90 receptions, and he'll be a little better than he was last year. So again, that's like a top 20 wide receiver. Excellent player in a much better situation than he was in, and hopefully he can succeed this time around. I think, I mean, getting him for $7 is really good. I wish I had gotten him instead of getting stuck with like, I would have preferred getting DJ Moore, and I took like Jalen Waddle for like $8 at like 95. When did you take DJ Moore? 78. Man, I would have preferred DJ Moore at this price than Jalen Waddle at my price. That's a good pick. I like that a lot. So then 81st nomination, my guy, or I should say in this case, Sarah's guy, for $10. Definitely not Robbie's guy. 100% not Robbie's guy. $10, Zay Flowers. So, man, the Ravens, every AFC, every year in the playoffs, they just shoot themselves in the foot. But we're going into year 3 of Zay Flowers. I knew he would be the guy coming out of Boston College, and I was proven right. But he still hasn't been on my team. He started to get used more downfield, even in the run-heavy offense that is Baltimore. He had a few less touchdowns. I think he only scored 4 last year. I think he scored over 18 points 5 times, if I am remembering this correctly, but he scored under 12 points like 10 times. So, like, very up and down. I think he's super talented. Funny enough, I think he's one of the best. Like, he's got this quick twitch thing. It's kind of like, this will sound weird, but it reminds me of young Tyreek Hill. Like, it's not, he doesn't have that long speed that Tyreek has, but he's got this quick twitch, acceleration, and ability underneath to just make you miss. And it helps get him open. The problem is, he's in a super run-heavy offense. This is Lamar Jackson. This is Derrick Henry. The offense runs through them, and they love to run. So I think he's like a quality wide receiver 3. I think he'll get you his 1,000 yards. He's got to get some good touchdown regression. I think he'll get like 7 touchdowns. I think he'll get like 75 receptions. I think Zay Flowers, you could build an offense around him. The problem is, I mean, chances are the way things are going, both Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson will be in the Hall of Fame one day. And I can't really justify building an offense around Zay Flowers when I have 2 Hall of Famers, one at quarterback and one at running back. I can't do it. So, and by the way, if you're going to say, oh, well, you know, I don't think Lamar's going to be in the Hall of Fame, just do keep in mind how many MVPs he's won and also how many rushing yards he's had as a quarterback. All right, the only guy comparable historically to him is Michael Vick, and we didn't really get to see all of Michael Vick because of the prison sentence. So I just bring that up to kind of be like, don't argue with me about this. You're not looking at it from a historical sense at all. Even putting the Super Bowls aside, which I think he'll win one at some point, but that's neither here nor there. So the point is, I like Zay Flowers a lot. He's been my guy for a while. I always root for him. Even though he's on Baltimore, it's crazy. Like, Baltimore picks players that I would love to have in Pittsburgh, and I get stuck with freaking Aaron Rodgers. But the point is, unfortunately for him, he's not quite in the right place, but he's such a good player. So, yeah, I think on your team, he's like the freaking what? He's got to be your flex by this point. Yeah, he's your flex because you got Neighbors and Bowers and more. So, yeah, that's crazy. He would be like my wide receiver 2 when he's your flex guy. He might be my wide receiver 3, to be honest with you, actually, if I think about it. But the point is, he's great. Having him as your flex is just great depth. 83rd nomination, 5 Towers, Braylon Allen. So this is a funny one. So Braylon Allen, year 2 last year, he was still the youngest player in football. And they used him more as a change of pace back behind Breece Hall. His efficiency wasn't really all that great, and he deferred more of his workload. Excuse me. Funny enough, to Isaiah Davis, who's their 3rd string running back. But I mean, he's still one of the youngest backs in football. You know, when he came into the league, he was 19. He's only 21 now. So, like, I know and you know that Breece Hall is the number 1, but a funny thing happened last year. So I was watching Jets late season because this sounds weird, but I do like to watch a car crash. The Jets were a car crash, and late season Jets, I had Breece Hall, and he was frustrating as crap, and that cost me in the first round of the playoffs last year. Not to get off track, but something that I noticed in the Devontae Adams, the drama, the Garrett Wilson not getting fed, the trading away Mike Williams, the Breece Hall not getting the ball right, we're firing Robert Saleh, the offense doesn't look right, Aaron Rodgers is calling plays at the line, everything's backyard football. A funny thing happened. And that funny thing was, whenever I saw Braylon Allen, among all of these other guys, essentially everybody gave up. Their body language was no good. You know whose body language was really good? It's Braylon Allen. Every play that he played, every time you looked at him on the sideline, he was ready to go. He was excited to be there. It was like infectious. You can go back and watch the games. He was the one guy on offense that you would see who just was not just happy to be there, but like excited to like be in the NFL, to do his thing, to get opportunities. And that's a weird, like, what are you talking about, Dylan? Like, what does that have to do with like talent or anything? Well, here's what that has to do with it. I think, personally, if I were running the Jets, I would trade Breece Hall. I would just lean all the way into, we have Justin Fields, let's see what the experiment looks like, and I would give Braylon Allen the shot at being the number 1. Was he terribly efficient last year? No. Is his vision great? Not really. Does he have breakaway speed? No. But what he does have, which is something the Jets desperately need, is he brings really good culture. In a team that has like none of it, had basically no leadership last year, the youngest guy on the squad seemed to lift everyone's spirits. And that's the kind of player that I want to play. Because, especially on a team like this, that's rebuilding, that has basically had like no freaking hope in like over a decade, and continues to get quarterback wrong anyway, you kind of need a guy like that. And I'd rather just give him a shot than continue what we're doing, even if Breece Hall has more talent. That's a weird, like, segue, but my point is, be on the lookout, because I don't think I'm wrong. I think they should do that, and I don't think I'm the only one of that opinion. It would not surprise me if one of two things happen. If the Jets split carries because of that trait of Braylon Allen's, or even step in further and they trade away Breece Hall. Because Breece Hall hasn't gotten an extension. He's going into the final year of his contract. I'm telling you, like, pay attention. It's a weird thing. Like, it's not something that I really notice, but, like, you just see things. You see leadership on the field. You see who the guys are. Like, I remember Ed Reed on the Ravens. I remember Troy Polamalu on the Steelers. I remember, like, this sounds kind of weird. I remember Tim Tebow, obviously, at Florida, then at Denver. I remember, obviously, Tom Brady, like, duh. But you see the unheralded guys, and you're just like, why does that guy, what is his role? And it's kind of like a six-man in basketball who's just the scorer. It's like the Lou Williams guy. That's Braylon Allen. And so putting aside that, I think he'll get like 450 yards rushing. I think he'll get 130 yards receiving. I think he'll score like 3 or 4 touchdowns. You're basically seeing if anything happens to Breece Hall. But Braylon Allen's the kind of guy I would keep on my bench on the off chance either A, something happens to Breece Hall, B, Breece Hall gets, like, and by something happens, I mean, like, he gets hurt, or Hall gets traded, or Allen gets the job, like, just outright. Because if nothing else, you need someone who sets that culture, and I think Allen sets that culture. Like, legitimately, like, they were having fun when he was playing last year. You can go back and check. Go watch the you don't even have to watch the film. Just watch the plays that he played. Watch how excited the linemen are to, like, see him after, like, a good run. Watch how excited, like, Garrett Wilson is for him. Watch how Aaron Rodgers talks to him and, like, they set him up. They're just, people are happy to be around him, and that's an incredibly rare trait, especially at running back, especially to be so young. So, and I wouldn't usually say something like that, but a team like this needs someone like that. So, yeah, that's a weird segue that I'm doing. That's, like, very in the weeds. But I really like Braylon Allen. I really like his football character. And it will not surprise me if by the end of the season, he is the starter in New York. I don't think that's coincidental. So, 88th nomination, Kendre Miller. All right. Last year was super not great for Kendre Miller. I think dude gets hurt a lot, which is crazy because Alvin Kamara is ahead of him, and I haven't seen Kendre Miller, like, really play that I can remember. I'm thinking, like, this is going into, like, year 3, and he's maybe gotten under 100 touches his entire career. He's the backup to Alvin. He has good traits. Kellen Moore just won a Super Bowl in Philly, so maybe he can be creative and do something with them. Basically, I don't know what to make of Miller because I haven't seen him for essentially since he came into the league, and he's just been injured the whole time. I think this year he'll contribute more, so we'll say like 70 rushes, maybe like 400 yards rushing, maybe a couple touchdowns. Obviously, it's Kamara's job all the way, but I guess Kendry's the backup, and they expect him to be healthy and contributing. I don't know if I really believe that, but if it's gonna ever happen, now would be the time. So you got to get the handcuff. You did get the handcuff. I can't really argue with it, especially for $1. 102 nomination, $1, Jalen Wright. So I think this is where you kind of fooled around and you messed up, Ryan. So Jalen Wright, you would think, I think he touched the ball 71 times last year. He was a 4th round pick, and he was the backup. He was splitting backup duties with Achane, with Mostert, and now Mostert is gone. And Jeff Wilson Jr. is on the practice squad with JaMycal Hasty. Obviously, Achane is the lead back. You have Achane. But I say all of that because one of the breakout stars of training camp and preseason, I think Mac just picked him up recently, has been Ollie Gordon II. 2 years ago at Oklahoma State, Ollie Gordon II was the best running back in college football. He was the Doak Walker winner. He had over 1,700 yards rushing. He looked incredible. He was getting first-round grades going into the NFL draft. And then last year, everything fell apart. He had like a DUI in the middle of the season. The team fell apart. The quarterback transferred away. They didn't win any games. I think he didn't even break 1,000 yards. And he got hurt at some point. And he looked bad. And he fell all the way to the 6th round, which is hard. If you want to go to Wikipedia, go look up Doak Walker Award winners, which is basically the best running back in the nation award, and look at all the players who have won that award. You have to go back, I think, to the early 2000s to find someone who was drafted later than him. And that's not even counting Bryce Love, who never played in the NFL and blew out his knee his last year at Stanford. He got drafted higher than Ollie Gordon. Gordon went in the 6th round, and he's looked fantastic in training camp and preseason. So I say all of that because I don't think Jalen Wright's the backup. I don't think he's the handcuff. I mean, he's injured right now. I think even when he comes back from the injury, he's not going to be the backup. I think it's Ollie Gordon. I think he lost that job. So, yeah, I'm going to put Wright at maybe 100 yards, maybe a couple touchdowns. But I think Ollie Gordon's the backup now. I think he's usurped him because he's looked impressive, man. Ollie Gordon's looked like he looked 2 years ago at Oklahoma State. He looks damn good. So, it's just something to keep an eye on, man. You're carrying Wright for maybe no reason. So, $130 nomination, $4, Kyler Murray. So, Matthew Berry's ride or die last year. The Kyler Murray experience is not a fun one. So we're going into year 7 now. He was fully healthy. He played the whole season last year. I think he was. I think he finished 12th as fantasy. Yeah, he was the 12th best fantasy quarterback, so right ahead of Brock Purdy. He actually had the highest completion percentage of his career with 69%. I'm hoping for a bounce back for me personally because I drafted Marvin Harrison Jr., which, by the way, again, I'm just going on tangents here, but Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Neighbors, Ricky Pearsall, all right? Those are first-round wide receivers last year. You know who was drafted before all those guys? Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. was the best wide receiver out of Ohio State. Gosh, I got to go back a while. But they built the entire offense around that guy. That guy goes to Arizona. Kyler Murray has no clue how to use him. And I'm just what the hell? He was the highest contested catch rate in the NFL. And I'm just why can't you just throw him open? Why are you so bad at the deep ball? Is this what DeAndre Hopkins had to put up with? So, yeah, I'm hoping for a breakout from Marvin Harrison Jr. But, geez, man, that was watching that from afar on, I think he was on your team, Ryan. That's why I didn't double dip on it. And I have him on mine. I'm just come on. Harrison Jr. ought to have more talent than all these guys. And you got to do better than this. So, anyway, back to this. So, Murray passed for 3,800 yards. He only had 21 touchdowns, but he adds the rushing, and the rushing is quite good. So he had over 500 yards rushing, another 5 rushing touchdowns. I think we're going to be around the same level. If we're being honest, that seems to be the level that we're doing. So I think he'll be maybe a little better, so we'll say around 30 touchdowns passing. We're just waiting for dual threat Kyler Murray to take the step where he's Drew Brees in the pocket and not he might be faster than Lamar Jackson. His speed is just incredible. He's got incredible breakaway speed. So again, we're hoping for Drew Brees in the pocket, and then maybe Michael Vick when he takes off. But we haven't gotten that. Like, we're going into year 7, and I see Jalen Hurts, I see Josh Allen, I see Lamar Jackson, I see these dudes winning Super Bowls, winning MVPs, and I'm like, what are you doing, Kyler Murray? You have talent, you got paid. Where is this? Why can't you show me something? So maybe this is the year he shows us something. I think he probably will because of the rushing. So I'll say he's a back end top 10 fantasy quarterback, like the number, I don't know, say like 8, right? Like, I like Baker Mayfield. I don't know if Mayfield's going to have 40 touchdown passes. It's baffling to me that that's double what Murray had last year. So Murray's got to do better. He's just got to do better than this if Arizona's going to go anywhere. Especially if he's their franchise player. Like, you have freaking Marvin Harrison Jr., you have Trey McBride, you have James Conner. You ought to be able to get to the playoffs, man. Like, come on. So Arizona's got to take a step. That whole coaching staff's going to get fired if they don't. All that's to say, I like the $4 quarterback. I like Kyler Murray. That is a very good pick. I think we took, $2.19, $1, Jared Goff. This is kind of why I'm surprised Leyland spent so much money on Jalen Hurts and Joe Burrow, because, like, Jared Goff was right there for $1. I think, what was it? He was like the 10th best fantasy quarterback last year, so ahead of Murray and Purdy. He doesn't really run, so that's the one thing. I mean, he had a crazy amount of touchdowns. He had 37 touchdown passes, and he was in the MVP conversation. He had so many touchdown passes. He threw for over 4,500 yards. However, the center's gone, and Ben Johnson's gone too. So, Goff's a quality guy. I don't know if he's going to be as good as he was last year, and even if he is, he's a back-end QB1 just because he doesn't run the ball at all. You need high passing. And I think that last year was the career year of Jared Goff. I don't think we're going to get that this year, not with Ben Johnson gone. So, personally, I don't know why you're carrying him at all. I would have just let him go and just kind of believed in Murray. But I know you've been burned by quarterbacks, especially bad quarterback play, like a lot in the recent seasons. So I get it. I wouldn't do it, but I mean, for you, you've been burned so much, I don't blame you. I think Goff's all right. I still don't like that they gave him an extension. I still think he is the weakest link on that offense, and I still think that there are better quarterbacks in the NFC. Again, I'm sure the Michigan guys like Brian and Justin, even Mackenzie, might argue with me, but the problem I have with Goff will always be if you put anyone else in that situation where they have elite receivers, they have elite offensive coordinator, they have elite offensive line, they have elite running backs, everything is elite, anyone would thrive. All right, I saw freaking Sam Darnold have less and essentially do more in Minnesota than Goff did last year, and he had everything, okay? I will not go against Sean McVay. If Sean McVay says, hey, I need an upgrade, Jared Goff's not that guy, and then wins a Super Bowl, I'm going to believe Sean McVay. I'm not going to believe Jared Goff. It's just, you're not going to change my mind. I think he's a good player. I think he's a back-end QB1. I think on any other team he ought to be on free agency, but I get why he's on yours. And then, 233, Marvin Mims Jr., the number 2 in Denver, I want to say. So, we're entering, year 3? I think towards the end of last year, he started really heating up. I think he was averaging, 13 fantasy points for, the back half of the season. And he was really blowing up in the late season in the fantasy playoffs. He was putting up close to 20. However, he's never played more than half the snaps in Denver up until the playoff run. But I guess this year is kind of his chance because it's just the Courtland Sutton show. Everybody else is kind of gone. I don't know what to make of him. I don't know how much Sean Payton's going to use him. I remember Sean Payton using Jimmy Graham. I remember Sean Payton using Marcus Colston. I remember him using Mark Ingram. I remember Reggie Bush. I remember Brandon Cooks. I remember him using Chris Olave. Sean Payton's a weird dude on offense. He likes you till he doesn't. So I don't know what Marvin Mims' kind of opportunity is. He's more of a lottery ticket. But I guess to find out, I don't blame you. 600 yards receiving, we'll say like 4 touchdowns. But if the Broncos become what Sean Payton thinks they'll become, and they're a high-flying offense, and they win like 14 games, Mims will probably have a lot to do with that. He'll probably be a breakout wide receiver, and he'll probably be a flex. And that has a higher possibility than people actually believe it. So I don't mind it, especially late game kind of drafting. So all of that's to say, it's a long video. I think, quite a few tangents where I just like kind of went off. But all of that's to say this. I have my own team ahead of you just because I like my upside more. But I think your team is really, really solid. Like, it's just like, hit the ground running. This team will compete. There's obviously the chance for upside with Achane and Neighbors. Given the situation, I don't think they'll reach that upside. But if they happen to, you got a shot. It's just hard for me to really say you got a chance of beating, like, again, we're just going to keep using Patrick as the example. If Patrick has, like, Monroe St. Brown and Justin Jefferson and Devontae Adams and they're just doing their thing, it's going to be really hard to beat them. But you have a very deep team. If Rashee Rice comes back, and he is Rashee Rice, like, you can just insert him for, like, gosh, I don't even know. I guess DJ Moore, and then you can move Moore for something. There are ways for you to figure out how to kind of, like, level up the team. And maybe this is finally the year you get quality quarterback play. Like, even if it's not top 5 quarterback play, Kyler Murray ought to be healthy the whole year. He ought to be like a top 8-ish quarterback. He ought to give you quality play week in, week out. And that makes you a playoff team. So I think you'll finally make some noise. I think you got to take care of the team. I also don't know why Bradley Chubb is on your team, but whatever. That's weird. I would have just gotten a second linebacker, but whatever. I like the team. I think it's probably a playoff team. I think you have some decent upside. But what I love about the team is, like, the depth. I went on a whole tangent about, like, Braylon Allen. That's really, like, the kind of lottery ticket guy on your team. That is the guy, I had him circled and highlighted, and I want him on my team for very specific reasons, as you can see. But I think that's, like, in a strange way, that's, like, your most likely path. Like, if Braylon Allen broke out and became Bucky Irving, that would be your in to, like, being something more and possibly pushing for a title. You need that kind of, like, breakout somewhere. I don't see it. You basically paid at cost for Neighbors and Bowers, but you saved on Moore and Flowers, but I don't think they can take another, like, big step. I don't think Kamara can take a big step. I think Murray isn't going to take a big step. So that's really the issue. It's really about Achane and maybe Neighbors taking that step. I don't believe it'll happen because of Russell, but, maybe. But I do like the team. It is rock solid, good quality team, up and down, through the whole lineup and bench. And I can't knock that. So, good job, Ryan. If nothing else, if injuries are killing the rest of the league, you can weather the storm, and you ought to make the playoffs, and you ought to be able to do something in the playoffs. Because even with the teams above you, there's going to be injuries at some point. I don't know who it's going to happen to. We don't play in a vacuum. It's unfortunate. But you have the depth to be able to weather that. Some teams don't. So Patrick needs David Montgomery to stay healthy. You can suffer whatever. I mean, technically, I guess Achane, you need him to stay healthy, especially because you don't have Ollie Gordon. But everywhere else, you're in really good shape. So this was one of your better drafts in a while. So good job, Ryan. Give yourself a pat on the back. This was This is well done. You are my number 17.